Welcome everyone to the updated CaptainSim 777 for Sim Update 5. So we're going to try it out with no mods and we'll see if it flies correctly in this new update of Flight Sim. So we're starting with the engines on as cold and dark starts appear to be broken. We'll just head down to the FMC, and being basically a default plane underneath, everything is pre-populated for you. So you've got your V-speeds, all the perf stuff is already filled out. So we are pretty much good to go. We're also going to head up to the MCP, and as usual for this plane, we will set our initial speed to about 250 knots, and we'll set our initial altitude to the altitude we've been given by ATC and the sim. And with those set, we'll just go LNAV mode and we'll go flight change mode. You can see also here that the auto throttle is already armed and the flight directors are already active. Also just setting our ND to a better distance so we can see where we're going, and with that done we are pretty much ready to fly. The flaps are already set to take off because we started with engines on. We'll bring the throttles up to toga and we'll rotate just after V1 at our rotate speed. As soon as we've got positive rate, gear can come up, and I'm going to manually fly this up to about 400 feet, just follow the FDs here, because last time we tried the 777 it does like to kind of flatten out and nosedive if you activate the autopilot too soon. But as soon as we're above 400 we can switch on that autopilot and just let the plane go on its way. We'll also roll off the flaps as we get to the correct speeds, but you can see here this is pretty good. It's climbing exactly as it should be at the right speed, and it's following the plan, which is a lot better than some of the earlier versions of this plane. So it looks like this patch for Sim Update 5 is fairly successful. Like I say, we're not using any additional mods, we're not using the salty mods or anything like that, because everything is just moving so fast that they just can't keep up. So we'll do a little bit of housekeeping as we're climbing. So the auto brake is set to max for our approach. Also going to set our nav radio here, and we can just let the plane do its thing up to our climb altitude, and the progress page is also fairly accurate. When we get above 10,000 we can set our speeds to our desired cruising speed of about 350 knots, and it does that with no issue, and then levels off at our top of climb, which is a low 11,000 feet just for this test flight today. At the top of descent we can just set the desired altitude, our first step descent altitude, and you can see it does kind of dip as soon as you start changing the altitude, but it doesn't actually descend until you press flight change. And we're also going to bring our speed back here to 250 knots because we'll very shortly be going below 10,000 feet, and the plane does a good job of balancing that deceleration with the need to descend to the set altitude. You will end up above 250 knots, below 10,000, just for a little while, but not by too much, and it's not a huge deal. And as we reach our bottom of descent for our initial descent, we can see that everything's correct and it levels off as it should at the right speed. So we've now been given our approach, so we'll program this into our arrivals. So we'll pick the runway we're going for, and we'll pick the transition we are taking, and what you'll see is exactly the same issue that we had in the A330, which, as I said, seems to be some kind of issue with default planes, where for some airports as soon as you enter the approach it doesn't necessarily follow that approach correctly. But all you have to do to fix it is exactly what we did in the Airbus, and exactly what we're going to do here, which is just set a direct to the first waypoint in the star, and the plane will follow the approach correctly from there on out. So a weird bug that exists in the sim, but a very easy fix to get your plane back on approach, and it's not really a showstopper for your flights. So as you can see, we've also started to decelerate a bit, and we've applied appropriate flaps for the speed we're aiming for. So for the rest of our approach, it will just be a case of waiting for our final deceleration point. You can see here our approach speed is set, and this is actually a correct speed. So as soon as we get to our final altitude, we'll set our approach speed, we'll roll on the full flaps as we've done here, and we've also dropped the gear. As soon as we start heading towards the airport, we'll go to intercept the localizer. So we'll remember that in super early versions of this plane, for some reason on your turn towards final, the plane would start a nosedive. This hasn't been an issue for the last few patches, and it certainly doesn't seem to be an issue today. So the 777 is actually quite reliable right now. Like I say, we are flying it without any additional mods, without the salty stuff, because the sim is updating so often, the plane itself is updating so often. There is no way that the mod creators who make mods that run on top of these could keep up. So if you use mods on this plane right now, you're probably introducing a world of incompatibilities and bugs and all kinds of oddities. So just like with the Project Megapack A330, I'm just running the plane as it comes from the developer, which has been patched for Sim Update 5, and as we've seen, the performance seems to be flawless. So with the localizer established, we can go for approach mode, and once we're on final, at about 300 feet, we'll disengage both the autopilot and the auto throttle. Then once I'm above the runway, I'll bring those throttles back to idle, we'll just glide it straight down. As soon as we hit the ground, same as always, full reversers and the brakes. So there we go, that's a successful flight in the CaptainSim 777. It's a great plane now, it's reliable, it's perfectly flyable, and I hope that you found this video useful. If you did, please drop a like and a subscription, because I'm just going to continue to make this content as things change and update and there's new aircraft to try. Take care, and I'll see you next time.